I'm at Perez, and I'm following a really tough act here, so be gentle with me, okay? As Karen mentioned, my thing is that self-management will take over the world. I think that that bus left the station is not coming back. And what that means is that in the process of that happening, individual self-managed companies will become the new cradle of democracy. The problem with democracy today is that people don't live it. They vote every so often, and then nothing happens, or very little happens. And by living it every day, every hour of the day, etc., people will know in their gut what democracy is all about. So here's the warning: as you move, if you decide to go in the direction of self-management and move your company to be more humane, have happier, and more engaged people, everything you do will have an impact on the broader world. As I see it, the self-managed companies have picked up with the Enlightenment left off. The core ideals of the American Revolution were the ideals of enlightenment. And that was the beginning of the end for monarchy, right? Monarchy was swept aside all the way to the front door of private businesses. That's where he stopped. And inside those doors, monarchy is still alive and kicking. These two charts are not that different, right? This one on the left has a king at the top, and the one has the boss at the top. It's the same thing. And that's problematic, because that's what I call a define or power structure or power pyramid, where all the power is at the top, and it somehow trickles down to the rest of the people, and that's not really the way it works. The thing is, that's what we're used to today. So centralized decision making, that's normal, right? Telling people what to do, when to do it, how to do it, that's perfectly normal. That's what we expect and people accept today, but we're going to change that. When this happened, the American Revolution, it was just an ideal, right? People have been writing about it in the Enlightenment, starting with David Hume and all the people who followed, and but it was just an ideal. So in a world where people were ruled by monarchs from above, the idea of self-government was entirely alien, right? Except these people were far enough and crazy enough to try it. People expected more of what happened in the French Revolution. Chaos, people walking around with their, well, not walking around, but with lots of heads rolling and things like that. Lucky for us, this worked. And it's worked for a long time, and it's worked big time. It's under threat every day, but it still works. But what about our workplaces? What about the place where we spend all of our waking hours, or most of our waking hours, right? In a world where people are ruled by bosses from above, the idea of self-management is entirely alien. We're going through the same process at a different level. So to me, it's like enlightenment stopped, and now we're picking it up again. And a lot of smart people think of self-management as a fashionable thing. It'll go away. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's utterly ridiculous, is what Tom Peters said. Very smart guy, but I said a couple of things on Twitter, and he jumped up my throat and said this. But you know what? I took it as a badge of honor. I thought, that's good. Because if it weren't utterly ridiculous to him, then it's more of the same. So we're doing something different, right? And companies are moving away from command and control kinds of organizations. They're trying different things. There's lots of experimenting, but that's okay. That's like the 13 original colonies. They were trying all kinds of different things. And a lot of it is driven by demographics. That's people that, you know, my kids are very different than what we were when we were their age. But it's not only that, it's automation, you mentioned that also. It's lots of things like that that are pushing this forward. But I think the most fundamental thing that's driving this forward is people's desire for justice. That's always been there and never goes away. And as this man said a long time ago, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. So I got to tell you a secret. When I first heard of self-management, I didn't embrace it. It wasn't a vision. There were no burning bushes or anything like that. In fact, I rejected it. It felt to me like it was a threat, right? I was looking at it through colored glasses that were colored by my experience by what was normal to me. And what's normal to most people today, which is, you know, the boss tells you what to do, etc. I was a manager. So you come to me with self-management, what are you telling me? And so my first reaction was, that's bullshit. Excuse me. That's BS. And, but anyways, luckily, Nearsoft happened to me. And I really mean that as it happened. So my whole experience is building products, hardware, software, technology products. Here I am at 55, 10 years ago, starting a company in the service business. I had no idea what I was doing. That's good. It turns out that that's good. Even more lucky for me, I partnered with a younger guy about the age of my kids, who was even more inexperienced about everything. So that was also lucky, because the good news is that we both had the same intentions. They both had the same vision of what we wanted to create. And we have flexibility because we didn't know what we were doing. Or as this man said, this Chuck Blakeman, we believe in our heart of hearts that people actually want to contribute. They want to make meaning, not money. If you believe that, then you do a lot of things that very different that we do today. So we did a lot of experimenting. I mean, like I said, Nearsoft was a great thing. It was a lot of experimenting, although be careful, because this is kind of experiment where you're both the mad scientist and the frog at the same time. Okay, so you got to be careful with that. The key lesson for me was taking that first step. We did it out of naivete, not knowing what we were doing and stuff like that. Don't wait until everything's perfect. Don't wait until the T's are dotted, T's crossed and the I's dotted. Get going, because even if you do it wrong, at least you're doing it and you're learning. And if you're not doing it, then you're not doing it. Lots of people walking around talking and reading and not doing anything, and to me that's frustrating sometimes. So take the first step and change the world. So I'm going to talk briefly about Nearsoft. As Karen mentioned, we're a software development company. And we've been around since 2007. Back then we started about 8 people in a little dilapidated house in Mexico. Literally had broken floors. Literally, I walked in and went, holy shit, what's this? Today we have over 240 Nearsoftians in 3 locations in Mexico, and we have over 30 very happy clients. Every one of those clients are referenceable. Not because I do any magic, because of the people that work with them directly. And that's the key. Since 2008, we've been ranked as the top 20 great places to work in Mexico in the technology space. And since 2009, we've been certified, sometimes I think of it as certifiable, but certified freedom-centric workplace. And about a month ago, the company was acquired. So that shows you that you can be self-managed and do all the crazy stuff and still be very successful financially. In fact, my personal belief is that self-management and freedom-centric culture is the only way that you can be successful in every sense of the word, not just financially. And that's a mistake that we have to correct. So how did we get started? Like I said, we didn't know much. We had an idea of what we didn't want. So sorry if anybody here is in HR, but we didn't want HR, traditional HR. And it starts with the name, human resource. Do you want to be a resource? I don't want to be a resource. Do you? No. And it goes like that, right? But and the thing is, words are important. So if you consider yourself a human resource person, you're going to think of them as things in the warehouse. So we didn't want any of that. We did want transparency. My thing was, look, I can't remember anything, so I don't know if I told you one thing and one lie and tell a different lie to the next person. So the way to fix that is always tell what's true, right? We wanted to have an adult-safe environment. That means that we want to be treated like adults, we wanted to treat other people like adults. And we wanted it to be fun. I had spent 30 years in the corporate space, and it wasn't fun a lot of the time. Little did we know that we were setting ourselves up for failure. Because yeah, we knew what we wanted, what we didn't want, but we didn't know how to do it. And it was the same trap that Google fell into in 2002. So in 2002, Google tried this flat organization. And that's what they did. They got rid of the managers. What irks me is that lots of people write about this and say, oh, self-management didn't work for Google. Well, that wasn't self-management. What they did is they took a traditional hierarchical organization, ripped the guts out of it, and leave a vacuum behind. It takes a lot of work to make self-management work. We have a lot more structure than when, in my experience, when I worked in traditional hierarchical management, because there, how do you solve everything? Ask the boss. I want to go pee, ask the boss. Number two, ask the boss, right? Anything is, you don't have to think much, just ask the boss. Here, we don't have a boss, so we need a mission, we need a purpose, we need a lot of these things. They didn't do any of that. So people continue to work in the old ways and work out of their old habits. And so everybody went to Larry Page for everything. Can I buy paper? Can I sell this? Can I do that? And so it was more like the French Revolution without the blood. It didn't last long. It lasted about, I don't know if it lasted more than 2 years. And then it went back to traditional management. So it was like the French Revolution. It was, total chaos and then Napoleon. And that's where we were heading, because we didn't have any structure or anything. Luckily, we found this guy. My son read Maverick and said, you have to read this. And it was mind-blowing. It really was mind-blowing. This man is a Brazilian, and he had done everything that we were hoping to do in the 80s, in Brazil, in manufacturing. So we figured, wait a minute, if he can do that, it should be a walk in the park for us. Maverick in particular also gave us a lot of the detailed prescriptions for what to do to set up the scaffolding. So he talked about very specific details of what they did, and we picked up a lot of that. So I'll talk a little bit about what we do at Nearsoft as an example of what's worked for us. A lot of the practices of self-management are counterintuitive. You tell people what you do and they go, oh, really? And that's why you think that it's going to go away and isn't going to have an impact. Transparency and decentralization have to be at the top of those two. People just lose their mind over that. Transparency for us is default to public. Everything, default to public. So whatever the information, we have all our documents in Google Drive, and the default is everybody can see it, everybody can comment. You may restrict the writing part, because you don't want people changing your documents on the fly, but everybody should be able to find them and read them. And in fact, that goes beyond the company. We publish just about everything we can think of and share everything within the company. Revenues, expenses, sales, not only the sales that we made, but the sales that we lost. That's an important lesson too. Recruiting and salaries. And this is where people go crazy over that one. Now, we don't publish that in the newspapers, we don't post it on the walls, but everybody that comes in the door is told how to get it, if they need help with analyzing it, how to do it. And for example, one of the things that that came out of that is several years ago, one of the guys walked into finance and said, I want everybody's salaries in the spreadsheet. So this guy walked away with all the numbers. And 2 weeks later, he sat us down and said, you know what? Here's what we're doing. We're not being fair to people. And so what that gave us was a plan for, okay, now we know we have a problem. We can correct it, right? It didn't happen that somebody got pissed off because they found out they'd made less or whatever, and nobody told them how to do that. It was out of the data's there, I can do it. There's a thing for me, so I'm going to go do it. Centralization is pretty much what he said. There's no bosses at Nearsoft. There's no bosses, but like I said, there's a lot of structure, and there is a boss, and it's the mission. These are some of the tools that we use to run the company. These are the ones that are proven to be scalable, that have survived over time. The first one, most important one, is leadership teams. Normally, when you hear the term leadership team, it means the guys at the top, the guys with the big guns telling people what to do. And that pisses me off big time, because they're not leading. It's a matter of they got the biggest gun, that's it. So that's not leading, that's force. In fact, another thing that we say is to lead, you lead with trust. To command, you command with force. The other thing is command by force. This is leading with trust. So The leadership team is anybody can call one on any topic at any time. The only rule is be transparent. Publish your minutes, publish your results. That's it, right? And these are some of the things that people have managed over time. Significant things for the company, budget allocations, profit sharing. We used to have this formula that was very elaborate and very fair and took a lot of stuff into account, and nobody understood, except my partner. I didn't understand it, but I trusted him, so you go with it. And again, somebody said, no, this is bullshit, I don't want to, sorry. This is not good stuff, we're gonna do it differently. And what they decided was divide by N. That was their publication, the results, was divide by N. If there's $100 left at the end of the year and 100 people in the company, everybody gets $1. Everybody. The clean people get $1, their direct employees. The guy who drives the van for us gets $1. Everybody gets the same amount. And again, it came out of that. And working from home, again, there was a lot of tension around, should people work in the office, and they came up with a scheme where anybody can work from anywhere at any time. You have to negotiate with your team if you can work at home or not, right? Because that's what you're responsible to, is your team. But that's it. You don't have to ask anybody else. What we found out the hard way was we needed more structure to make leadership teams work well. And one thing we came up with was decision matrix. This is something that we copied for another company, from another company, that they copied from another company, so none of this is original work, really. I don't know if you can see it. The rows are the types of decisions that you make in the company. And then the columns are the different kinds of people that get involved in different decisions. So for example, the fate of the company. We just sold the company, so we went through this. By law, it has to be the board of directors, right? So they approach us and we say yes or no, let's negotiate. That's the board of director kind of thing. Shareholders have to ratify. In our case, all employees were shareholders, except the new ones. You have to be 18 months before you get your first shares. At the other end, hiring and firing people is handled by leadership teams, the recruiter and the interviewers. That's it. There's nobody else at the end that has to approve and the thing of, no, I'm going to talk with the boss. Now I'm going to, none of that, okay? The people you're talking to are going to make a decision at the end. In order for that to work, you need an explicit governance framework. The emphasis on explicit. It can be in people's heads. And again, we learned that the hard way. So I would say, no, this thing ought to work this way. It's like, why? Okay, let's figure it out. Let's write it down. That's been the process. And in our case, that governance framework starts with a purpose, then it's followed by a mission, values, and principles. Sounds like a lot of stuff, but you do need all that, really. This has come out of the experience that we had trying to operate this way. So it's the kind of thing that you'll never get there. It's the North Star. You'll never actually get there. But it gives you a direction. At any point, there's any argument, there's anything, you go, is this in line with our purpose? Are we doing this to improve the world and do the things that we want to do? And if the answer is no, then that's your answer, right? The mission is a short-term thing. In our case, it's a 5-year mission. It's got 4 bullets in it. And as I mentioned, we have a similar thing where we use OKRs as objectives and key results. That's an individual thing. Normally, the way that works is your OKRs should be aligned with your bosses, and your bosses with his bosses, and his bosses with, ad infinitum. In this case, everything is aligned with the mission. So you look at the mission, you know what you can do, you write down the things that you think you're going to do for the quarter, and then but towards the 5-year goals. So one of the goals was getting to a $40 million market cap. We didn't get there, but it was ever present for everybody when they wrote their OKRs every quarter. Values, the fewer the better, the simple the better. We got 5. I wanted 3, but we got 5. And then principles, we pretty much adopted the principles of World Loop. It's been very valuable to us. Although transparency and decentralization are the sacred ones. We can't live without those. The thing about these is that we keep up with all of these things in a good process. So it's not like I wrote down the 10 values and said, here it is, in 2 tablets and came down the mountain kind of thing. So we use technological innovation games and all kinds of different things to get everybody involved. There's been no voting, by the way. We don't use voting. I personally think voting is a regressive thing because from the get-go, you have a loser. If you win the vote, somebody's going to lose the vote. This guy used to work for Zappos years ago, and he said, look, when everybody knows what the company's about, then they can get behind it, and then they don't have to be told what to do. We have no defined hierarchy, or no power hierarchy. There's lots of side effects to that. We don't talk about empowerment, we don't talk about flexibility, we don't talk about any of those things. What we focus on is self-agency. People are adults, like you said, we make major decisions in our lives, so fine, keep doing that in the life that happens to happen at our work. For one thing, we don't talk about promotions. That somebody always asks the question, so how do you get promoted at Nearsoft? And the thing is, that's a tool of control. That's a command and control kind of tool. If I get a lot of power, all the power, so I'll make her a VP, I'll give her a little bit of power. And she'll make you a director, gives you a little bit less power, and she'll make you a manager. You see the point? The thing is, at any point they can go, I don't like you anymore. She's going to be the VP. That's it. It's force. It's brute force at work. Okay? We don't do that. And we thought about this, and we said, well, how did people? Because there was a lot of complaint. In the great place to work, that keep coming back every year. We don't know what our career path is. And what we figured is, okay, growth and development. That's the key. And that's what we need to focus on. And so we've done a lot of things to help people. We got training in all kinds of modes. We have weekly talks, we have mentoring, we have group training, we have individual training, and we have, by the way, the budget for training is managed by a leadership team. I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what they do with it. Beyond growth and development, the things that people like to talk about, oh, I want to be a senior master programmer and teach people how to do things, etc. There's just stuff that people don't like to talk about, and that's their dreams. In fact, all of our work has gone into getting people to talk about it. So what do you want to be in 5 years? Oh, I want to be a better this and a bigger that, and yeah. But what do you really want? How do you really want to be perceived, right? And then people get very quiet. Because what happened when you were a little kid, you didn't know any better, and you spout your dreams at everybody, and they go, oh, don't be an idiot. That's not, you're never going to be one of those. You're going to be a fireman or whatever. You're never going to be a fireman. And so it's important to get people to open up about the dreams beyond Nearsoft. It doesn't matter if you want to be a truck driver when you grow up, but what is it that you want to get to? And then work with people to make a plan and figure out what resources they need and how to go get them, etc. It takes a lot of work. We tried different ways of doing it. We're still working at it, but that's real key. I recommend this book very highly. It's a short read, and it was very inspirational for me. The Work Anywhere thing, I talked about it in communities. The last thing I talk about is that a healthy culture has to be inclusive. So we don't think of developers or candidates anymore. We think of the talent community. So the whole community out there, how can we help them? So one thing that came out of that was, well, we'd like them to get better. We'd like people to, even if they don't come to work for us. We interview somebody and we say, oh, we're going to pass them. But how can that person get better so they can come back in a couple of years or go do great work somewhere else? Well, you have to give them feedback. The immediate thing was, we can't tell them why. We told them that we didn't want them because, all the legal ramifications. It truly is BS, because if you sit down with your lawyer and you say, we're going to do this, so what do we need to do not to burn ourselves? And they tell you, and then you go, okay. But we give people very detailed feedback. Why we didn't choose them, how to correct it, and in some cases we even volunteer to work with them online or whatever it is on a regular basis for a few weeks. And we've actually had people that were rejected and then hired a couple of months later. So the way I think of it is, you're fishing, you take out the little fish, you don't throw it way out there. Throw it next to the boat and keep it close to the boat. So when they grow up, you can take them out of the water and put them in the boat and eat them. So a couple of things to close. It's not going to be a straight road. It's not going to be a straight road. Even if you read the books and you pick up somebody's system or whatever, it's not going to be a straight road, because every company is different. The minute a new person comes in the company, it's different. Keep the hope alive and keep doing the good work. You are now a certified member of this movement to restart the Enlightenment, and armbands will be in the back of the room. So thank you.